So greetings, it's Mike from LiveMyAssOff.com, and I wanted to tell you a little story. So about 30 years ago, a little over 30 years ago, so it would have been December of '87, took my first trip down to the Florida Keys. My buddy Arnie Beveridge had been coming down here for 1 or 2 years, meaning he came down to Bahia Honda Key, and he came down here to go windsurfing. And so I had no skills as far as windsurfing goes, but I was like, well, I like the beach, I like warm weather, because as a kid, as of about age 10, my dad introduced me to boating, sailing, and at about age 12, I got the Boston Whaler, and so spent a lot of time over the summers around the Boston Harbor Islands, and that sort of thing, and that was an absolute blessing. So I'm like, great, well, let's go down. I want to go down to the Florida Keys. And so shortly after Christmas Day, we got in our cars and we drove down to, and so it's about a 27-hour drive if you do it straight, which we did. And to give you kind of an example of when that was, it was 30 years ago, so it would have been in 1987. And so Jolt Cola had just come out. All the sugar and twice the caffeine, and so we thought, I mean, we're like, 18, right? And so we're trying to buck the system and be rebels, and so we got some Jolt Cola. Oh, and Vibrant, that was another thing too. And got in the car and drove all the way down in about 27 hours. Now the reason that we would time it such that we would show up at the Bahia Honda campground, because we would camp in tents, dry camp, such that we would get there right when it opened. And I can't remember whether that was 7 a.m. or 8 a.m. But we would time it so that we would get there, and we would always be pretty good at it. In fact, we would get there sometimes like 30 minutes early. And from there, we would I remember just like sitting in the car and like sleeping, waiting for it to open, and then running in saying, please have a campsite. And for the most part, they would. And, it's really interesting to be here now and reflect back on that time, obviously with good memories, but just simple things. Like, so for example, right now, I wouldn't chance it. I believe that like the national parks in the United States, they have some sort of rules, if you will, I guess. And so you can book a campsite, I think, like some of them are like 6 months in advance or 1 year in advance. And of course, all the people seem to get online at like, 6 months and 1 minute and hit the submit key to reserve the campsite they want, or 1 year or whatever. And so that wasn't available back then. And so we, drove down and took our chances. And I think for the most part, there was only one time that I came down. Oh no, I remember what it was. It was 6 months in advance, and we would have to get on the phone and dial and dial and dial and dial and dial. And a lot of times it would be busy and that sort of thing, and we would, I actually remember doing that. 6 months ahead of time, at like 6 or 7 in the morning, I remember calling them from UMass Boston. Is that right? I guess that sounds right. I'm not sure, maybe it was home, but regardless, I do remember calling them on the phone. So we would have these campsites, and it was my first taste of the tropics by the water. Now, at age 12 or 13, my parents, we went to Disney World for the first time, and it was around my birthday, and so it was March in Orlando, and so it was definitely warm. And it's not like I hadn't experienced warm living on the water. I mean, I grew up in Boston, and in the summers, I mean, for 2 to 3 months, Boston area is absolutely my kind of place. So anyway, so I ended up down here in the tropics for the first time at Bahia Honda Key. And then from there, we would camp, and then from there we would like cruise over to Big Pine, where Arnie had a buddy. And I remember like sleeping on his floor, in a sleeping bag. And then we would cruise over to Bahia Honda for the day and then go windsurfing, and it was awesome. And I remember being like, oh, this is fantastic. I absolutely love it. But I don't remember making such statements like, oh my God, I want to stay here for the rest of my life. And you could argue, well, at 18, you don't really say anything to the effect of, I'm going to do this for the rest of my life. And so again, it's really interesting, 28 to 30 years later to be back here, and experiencing it in comparison to all of the experiences I've had in the last 30 years. In 3 months, I will be sober 25 years. So I'm sober 24 years, and so for the most of this time, I've been on an infinitely different path than I was, certainly 25 years ago, but also, over 30 years ago, over 28 years ago. And so that's really neat too. And I remember when I first got sober and I started experiencing things for the first time. I mean, that was a real joy, especially living in Southern California, because basically from the moment I got there, within about a month, I started drinking heavily, and then within about 3 months, I started doing cocaine. So, I was pretty numb for the most part of a lot of my first experiences in San Diego. So it was nice to re-experience those sober and with my sober friends. So that was great. So anyway, I just thought I'd check in from here. I'm over at Higgs Beach, and it's pretty nice, man. I mean, it's really chill. You can see or maybe you can't see, but there's a pier in the background, and I'm just chilling out here at the park. This is an AIDS memorial, actually, that they built here, and similar to a lot of memorials, they have stone where they, sadly, I assume, I haven't checked, but where they have etched in, I assume, the names of people who probably have passed away from complications as related to HIV and AIDS and that sort of thing, and so that sucks. But it's I guess it's a healthy way, for our society to pay tribute to people who by almost no fault of their own. I mean, you could argue that there are proactive steps you could take. Certainly now we know there are, to not contract or share or distribute HIV, AIDS, STDs in general. But anyway, so I'm hanging out here, and it's a really great time reflecting. So anyway, wherever you're listening to this, I truly hope you're safe and happy, and I hope you're living the dream. So if you're not living the dream, you're doing it wrong. And I know what it's like to not live the dream. And I'm honored to be shown a way to do it right, to do it right now. So, all the best. Ciao.